This is the third time I have tried to film this video, and let's hope it will be the last. It has proven to be more annoying than I thought it would be, but we live and we learn. Cheers and drink to that. I should probably start off by introducing myself. I'm not great with introductions, which is kind of the point of this video, because I thought what better way to introduce myself than convince you to read 5 of my favorite books. I feel like that says a lot about who I am as a person. My name is Trinity, also known as Trinity Rain, also known as Literani, which is my handle. That's a little clever mashup of the words literary and rain, like my middle name. Yeah. I cooked on that for way too long. Something you should know about me is that I don't have a favorite anything for the most part. I don't have a favorite drink, I don't have a favorite meal or color or movie. Picking my top movies on Letterboxd is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, and it changes constantly, except with the exception of Greta Gerwig's Little Women. That is a permanent fixture on my Letterboxd. But I don't have a favorite of pretty much anything, which is why I am convincing you to read 5 of some of my favorite books, because I do have many favorite books, unfortunately. I mean, fortunately for the authors, I guess. I do have a shelf on my Goodreads where I put all of my favorite books as I read them. I will link my Goodreads and my Storygraph below in the description too, so if you're interested in following those, you can check them out at your leisure. Without further ado, I am going to get into the 5 books I'm talking about today. And I will say this, I did save the best for last. I know I just went on a tangent about how I don't have a favorite of anything, but I do kind of have a favorite book of all time. And I wonder if you can guess who it's by, but we'll save that for the end. I wanted to start with the literary fiction portion of my 5 books. As I'm sure you can tell by the books behind me, I'm more of a fantasy reader. I tend to lean towards that. But another thing about me is that I will read just about anything. I love fantasy, romance, thriller, you name it, I'll explore it. I'm pretty open to anything. I do love a good contemporary fiction novel, which brings me to my first book, Maame by Jessica George. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think this was her debut novel, and if that is true, this is one hell of a way to start out your writing career, because this book is truly phenomenal. This is about a girl named Maddie who lives in London, and her family is from Ghana. Her mom spends most of her time going back and forth between Ghana and London, and her father has Parkinson's, and Maddie is kind of left to be the primary caregiver. Now, she does have a brother, but he doesn't really help her out, so all of the responsibility is pretty much left up to her. Maddie's mom comes home one day from Ghana and says, "Maddie, you've been stuck in this house for too long. You're like 25. You need to be living like a normal 25-year-old. I'm gonna release you of your duties," basically. And Maddie's like, "This is crazy." And she gently gets kicked out, and she moves out on her own, and it's kind of like a coming-of-age novel. And one thing I loved about this book is that Maddie is genuinely so funny. I love being inside her head. She's so relatable at times. Yeah, I love this book. I recommend it often, and I will recommend it probably until the day I die. Now, this next one is actually a memoir, and I have read quite a few memoirs in my time, and this is one of my favorites. I don't have a physical copy of it yet because I want to get the UK cover of it. This is Hijab Butch Blues by Lamya H. This is a memoir about Lamya, who is a hijabi Muslim who is also grappling with 2 different identities of a queer identity and also their gender identity and journey, and kind of discovering how to discover themselves in those contexts along with their dedication to their religion. This was such an interesting read because I don't know much about Islam or any religion really for that matter, so I always enjoy hearing narratives like this, but this one was so unique and told in a way that is very compelling. I think Lamya has such a good author voice. I think they're coming out with something else soon-ish, or maybe I'm lying. I think they're publishing a collection of essays with a handful of other authors. I have it on my want to read on Goodreads, but I can't remember what it's called. This is a wonderful memoir. I honestly feel like this should be required reading for a lot of people. It talks about a lot of things that aren't often discussed in the queer community or in communities in general, so provides a lot of very important and necessary insight. Now we're going to completely pivot to one of my favorite dark academia books of all time, which is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. This is for all of you insufferably annoying theater kids like myself. This is about a group of college students who go to a conservatory specifically for theater, specifically for Shakespeare. Like some of the most annoying people you've ever met, probably. This is such a atmospheric, compelling mystery thriller. It really draws you in. I love all the characters and their complexities, and it is heavy on the Shakespeare. So if you're a Shakespeare hater, or if that's just not your vibe, definitely not for you. But if you liked The Secret History, I think you like this as well. It actually says, like Donna Tartt's A Secret History, so they're very similar, except this is Shakespeare instead of Greek literature. One of my favorite scenes is when they do the performance of Macbeth on Halloween. That is ingrained in my mind for possibly forever. Keeping up with the dark academia theme, but turning it on its head. Next is Babel, or Babel as some of you say, by R.F. Kuang. Babel is a devastatingly beautiful, complex story about colonialism, about the beauty of translation and the weaponization of translation, and we follow the story of a boy named Robin in the 1820s, I believe. 1825? 1828. He is taken away from Canton, which is where he's from, by this professor at Oxford. He meets 3 other scholars who all are also studying very rigorously to try and get into the very prestigious translation program, also known as the Tower of Babel. And it kind of goes from there. This is insane. Truly an insane novel. She puts something in her writing that is addictive, and this is no exception. I also think this is something that everyone should read. It's insane how many parallels you can draw to our current world. If you're gonna read any book from this video, I would say make it this one or this one. This is possibly my favorite book of all time. This is Vicious by V.E. Schwab. Obviously, I have an affinity for her. She is my favorite author, probably, if I had to pick one. Vicious is also sometimes marketed as dark academia, but I don't necessarily understand that because they're only in college for a second. So if you go into this believing it's dark academia, you're going to be disappointed. This is about 2 college students who are best friends turned rivals named Eli and Victor. They're in med school. So when it comes time to do their thesis, Victor decides to do his on how adrenaline changes your body and how you can do crazy feats while your body is pumped full of adrenaline. And Eli decides to do his on this phenomenon called extraordinaries, which is something that happens in their version of our society, where you have a near-death experience, or you legally die, technically, I suppose, but you come back and something about you isn't right. And some people believe in this and some people don't. That's why when Eli pitches this to his professor is like, how are you gonna do that if you don't have any evidence or anything? Like, this isn't like something that necessarily exists. Eli is like, well, I'm gonna create my own evidence. So him and Victor do a little experiment in their college apartment that goes super wrong, or maybe it goes super right, who knows? Who's to say? It picks up when Victor is getting out of jail 10 years later. I think that's where the book begins. It is incredibly riveting, in my opinion. It's very fast moving. It's very dark. This is truly morally gray characters. If you're looking for true kind of fucked up people, they're in this book, and I love them so much. It is such a fast-paced story, and it's so good. Originally, this was only supposed to be a standalone. And then, like, 9 years later, she wrote Vengeful, which is the second one. And now Victorious comes out, hopefully next year. And Trust me when I say that is one of my most anticipated reads ever. Of course, I am very excited for her next release this year in June, which is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. I do have the arc of this that I got from my job, so I'm very excited to read this. What we learned is that if you're going to read any book from this video, make it Babel or make it Vicious, or hey, why not make it both, right? What's stopping you from making it both, or all of them if you want to get a little crazy? I've been trying to waffle on how to do an outro without sounding like a gamer guy, but you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So smash that like button, hit subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your support, and I will see you next time. Okay, guys, if we're gonna be friends, you're gonna have to tell me when my septum piercing is crooked. That's how you earn my trust, okay? How are we gonna stack these? Everything is at low battery, so I need to fucking hurry. One of these is not like the other.